Good afternoon and welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us here today. I'm Becca Jones-Albertus, the Director of the Solar Energy Technologies Office at the U.S. Department of Energy. I'm very pleased to have you here with us today. I want to make sure you're aware that this webinar is being recorded. We'll also be taking questions at the end. And as you know, we are delighted to have the Secretary of Energy, Jennifer Granholm, with us today, and she'll be talking with solar industry leaders and elected officials about a new tool we're announcing today to accelerate rooftop solar deployment. It's called Solar Automated Permitting Processing Plus, long name, so we call it SolarAPP for short, and it reduces the delays and costs associated with obtaining permits for rooftop solar installations. And today, we at the Department of Energy are also launching a national campaign called the Summer of Solar. The Summer of Solar is all about providing information for consumers about residential and community solar and sharing stories from our diverse communities across the country about their solar experiences. Because the bottom line is we need to make it faster and easier for consumers to go solar, especially those in underserved communities. Throughout the summer, you'll be seeing solar celebrations from us taking place in communities that are connecting to SolarAPP. And you can follow the campaign on social media and see where the celebrations are taking place with the hashtag #RunningOnSunshine. And now it's my great pleasure to introduce Secretary of Energy Jennifer Granholm. She is leading the charge in fighting the climate crisis, promoting energy justice, and creating clean energy jobs across America. Madam Secretary, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Dr. Jones-Albertus. Hello, everyone. I am so thrilled to have you all join us as we kick off this Summer of Solar. In just the last few weeks, solar energy in America, just so that you know, has hit two very key milestones. First, we crossed 100 gigawatts of solar energy capacity. Awesome. And second, we now have 3 million solar installations nationwide that are harnessing clean energy from sunshine every single day. And thanks to the investments that were made during the Obama administration to lower the cost of solar aggressively, we've seen the costs of utility scale solar plants drop by 80%. And that has helped to the industry to double in just the last 3.5 years. So today, that solar industry generates enough power to power 18.6 million homes nationwide. And the exciting thing is there's still tons of room to grow. It's great news for President Biden's ambitious climate agenda and clean energy agenda. The administration's doing everything we can to put the country on a path to having cutting by 50% the carbon emissions by the end of this decade and reaching 100% clean electricity by 2035, all on the way to achieving net zero carbon emissions by 2050. And to get there, we're going to need to deploy clean energy technologies. And that means adding hundreds and hundreds more gigawatts of solar capacity to the grid. And we have no time to waste as we are seeing the record-breaking heat waves and droughts and wildfires that are ravaging so much of the country. Tells us that the costs of delay are simply too high. And at the same time, the economics tell us that there's simply no reason to wait because solar power just makes sense. Not only is it cheaper than fossil fuels in much of the country, offering lower energy bills, it allows households to generate their own power. And since many can sell the excess power that they've generated back to their utilities, it's an easy way to make a little extra cash. And if you combine that with the battery storage technologies that are improving day by day, solar offers the key to a future where families will feel secure and energy independent and capable of keeping their lights on, no matter what Mother Nature throws at us. So it's amazing the progress we've made, and we have so much more to do. And so therefore, with all of those advantages, we want to make the choice to go solar even easier. And that's why we've set goals to cut in half again the price of solar in the next decade and to make it the cheapest source of electricity in America. And it's also why we designed SolarAPP. Or SolarAPP Plus. I don't know if you're using the Plus or not. I'm not sure, Rebecca, but SolarAPP, we're using that to cut the red tape that often delays the solar permitting process. So in some parts of the country, customers have to wait weeks for approvals before they can get their solar installations online. In other places, it's months that they have to wait. And all those days add up to distractions from larger projects. It adds up to dollars lost. Obviously, it contributes to climate change because the better and more we can get online faster, the more we can do our part to reduce the impacts of climate change. And last year, project delays cost homeowners to lose $16 million in wasted energy. So it's frustrating for customers. But it's also discouraging companies from setting up shop. Not too long ago, our National Renewable Energy Lab realized that it doesn't have to be this way, and they got to work on SolarAPP. And so they brought the code officials and the local government authorities and the industry players all together to figure out how is the best way to streamline the permitting process to the greatest extent possible. And so through the standardization and automation, this SolarAPP tool makes it easier and faster for local governments to process applications. It's instant, one-stop permitting, and it works wonders. I mean, earlier in the year, we launched a pilot program in 4 different localities. And the reason we did that is because we wanted to show how it works. And the results that we've been seeing are incredible. Tucson, Arizona managed to reduce the time that was needed for permitting reviews from 20 business days to 0, speeding up permitting. That means that we can do more installations, more clean energy capacity, more jobs. It's part of the soft costs that have prevented people from adopting more solar. So today, we are super excited to open up this tool for wider use, free. Our SolarAPP Plus team is ready and eager to work with any city or any county that wants to sign up. All we need to help you cut red tape are some details about your electrical code and a compliance check with your engineering team. And then we're good to go. We're setting up a goal right now to add 125 more communities to our list of users by the end of September. So for you local officials who might be tuning in, stick with us, because if you aren't convinced yet that you need this game-changing tool, you will be after you hear from our special guests, which will be joining us right now. So first up, it is my pleasure to introduce you to Lynn Jurich, the CEO of Sunrun, a residential solar and storage company that is serving over 500,000 customers in 22 states, Washington, D.C., Puerto Rico as well. Lynn, thank you so much for joining us. I was hoping that you could give our audience just a deeper understanding of the issues involved with solar permitting. So maybe you can tell us a little bit about the permitting pain points and how those have shaped Sunrun's model.
Absolutely. It's my pleasure to be here. And this is thrilling. I mean, I'm a solar entrepreneur. I've been at it for 14 years. And I have to give a quick shout out to a fellow entrepreneur, Andrew Birch, who was really put his heart and soul into this concept. And it's because we believe that this is simply the biggest thing we can do right now to unlock more renewable development. And a lot of times people look at the home, at the rooftop, and they think it's a small part of the solution, but it is actually one of the fastest ways that we can get that renewable capacity up on the grid. Because, if you think about carbon reduction, we're going to have to electrify everything into our homes. So we're going to have to pump so much more electricity out into our homes to electrify our cars and other devices in the house. And all of this stuff can be powered by rooftop solar, and it can be installed in one day. And I'm glad you mentioned the battery as well, because what happens now is with many homeowners, they're installing the solar, they're adding a battery, what that does is it actually creates a power plant. It creates this ability for, if we put solar and batteries on 10,000 homes, that's a 100 megawatt power plant that we can dispatch into the system. I mean, we're talking big time stuff. And, and just, Sunrun just focusing only on residential customers, we are the second largest owner of solar in the country, including, utilities. So this stuff scales. So how can we scale it even faster? Is with this SolarAPP. And, and if you need any sort of proof point on why this saves people so much money, why it's going to accelerate the adoption, you just look to the international, market. So in places like in Australia, in Europe, where they have this sort of instantaneous programming, the cost is half. And it's half the cost to install versus, in the United States. And so what you've seen then is that's why places like, Australia, you've been able to get 25% of rooftops to have solar on it, and we're here in the US, we're only at 3%. So this is a huge asset for us just waiting to be unleashed. And I, could not be more excited about the DOE's leadership on this. It's just really incredible.
It's so exciting. I'm so glad to hear you say that. I mean, obviously, it will benefit the ability of individuals to get this on their roofs. I'm wondering, do you see any broader impacts on the solar market as a result of this?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, what we're realizing is, we're, as I said, we're going to need so much more electricity on our grid, and we're going to need renewable electricity. So how are we going to build that out fast enough at scale to meet our needs? And when you do the modeling and anticipate, the cost reductions we're going to see, what you find is that the lowest cost system is going to be this combination of that utility scale solar and wind that you're mentioning, and this distributed system, which can take advantage of using the existing infrastructure of the rooftop, of the garage for the battery, increasingly also using your electric vehicle to be an energy asset off of the grid. And, and again, consumers, the technologies are here. Consumers can save money with these technologies, but we've made it too complicated. We put too many steps in it. And so what this enables us to do is bring those solutions to people, which are really, a lot of people think a renewable future, it has to be sacrificed. It has to be worse. I have to, I need, that sort of scarcity mindset. This is a better future. And so what this tool is going to enable us to do is really build out that distributed system to complement the centralized system. And I think people are going to be pretty surprised about the fact that we have these tools to solve this climate crisis right now.
I love it. No sacrifice, only benefit. I have a feeling that this rollout will mean huge uptake. I think you're exactly right. But our audience doesn't have to take it just from you or me. Our team here, fantastic team, has put together a brief video from folks in cities and counties that served as our SolarAPP Plus's early adopters. So let's take a watch.
Here in Pleasant Hill, our city council and mayor are very interested in people using these renewable energy sources. We have paper plans coming in that would take days to process and then get back out. The system here was a paper system that was all manual.
Since the mid-2000s, both Pima County and the city of Tucson have been extremely aggressive in trying to promote solar in our region. We were being inundated with solar permits. They were sitting in front of a lot of much more complex building permits and commercial permits that we needed to get out the door.
The city of Menifee right now is the third fastest growing jurisdiction in the state of California. The current environment at the city of Menifee for solar submittals is anywhere from 50 to 75 solar projects a week. Sometimes I've had 30 in one day.
It was fortuitous timing that the folks from SolarAPP were looking for people to participate in a pilot, a more automated review that will be huge for us. We're looking at a 90% reduction in the solar permits that we have to touch and process.
The thought of using a program like SolarAPP was very intriguing because it takes all of that paper out of the picture. It's made things a whole lot easier as far as process. We don't have contractors coming to us with incomplete plans or plans that are incorrect in some way.
Now, as a contractor, when you submit a set of plans through the SolarAPP, you're actually having a computer generate and do the review without any preconceived notions. And once it's submitted online, it takes 10 to 15 minutes and it's done. It's instantaneous. There's not any waiting.
I think the biggest benefit for the solar installers and contractors will be the reduction in time. Time from application or even sales with their customer to installation will be reduced tremendously. And we're already seeing that.
A jurisdiction would really have to look seriously hard inward not to take advantage of this because of the time savings and advantage that it gives you.
It's that next logical step in residential solar. I would definitely recommend that other jurisdictions and communities use SolarAPP.
I love it. I know it's great and incredible, and there's a lot of comments in the chat, so feel free to pipe in for those to whom those comments are directed. I think it's important to note that part of the benefit of SolarAPP, as one person raises, that jurisdictions, sometimes it's not just about the red tape, but it's about the fact that different jurisdictions have different processes, and this app does all of that work for you, which is fantastic. But those of you watching still, you may or may not be ready to take the leap. So we've invited officials from 4 cities and counties that have taken the leap to say hello and tell you a little bit about what SolarAPP can do for you. So joining me now is John Alita, who is the Deputy City Manager of Stockton, California, Regina Romero, who is the Mayor of Tucson, Arizona, Will Jawando, who's a council member serving Montgomery County, Maryland, and Sam Liccardo, who is Mayor of San Jose, California. Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for being with us. And let me just start with this. I'll start with John in Stockton. So Stockton just decided to pilot SolarAPP, and I'm wondering if you can tell us a little bit about your reasoning behind the decision and where you see this fitting in with your city's climate and energy goals.
Thank you for having me. And sure, I would love to talk about that. So in terms of our decision, first I want to just thank our staff here in the city of Stockton. We are fortunate enough to have some very forward-thinking people who recognize a good opportunity when they see it. And so the first reason we decided to go with SolarAPP is the fact that it was created with involvement from cities from the get-go. So we know that our requirements, our compliance checklists, all of those things that we need in the review process have already been considered. So we know it works with local government. The second reason is that we also know it has industry support. So the large players in the solar rooftop are already behind this. And so those are the same folks that we're working with in our community development department. So knowing that it has the trust and backing of those people from the beginning also gives us a high level of confidence in the product. But I think most importantly, it really revolves around our capacity and our workload issues. And we're a very lean city. We don't have a large staff. And we also have seen increasing numbers of solar rooftop applications. We've had a 26% increase in applications over the last 5 years. And that makes up about a quarter of our total permit applications. So a lot of intensive staff time goes into this. And so with SolarAPP, number one, we save staff time. Number two, our turnaround time, even with our lean staff, aren't too bad. They're about 4 days. But with SolarAPP, it's instantaneous. And our customers don't have to leave the comfort of their office or home. So they can go online, they can use SolarAPP, they can immediately pay for their permit, and they're good to go. So, I mean, it's rare that you can find something that works this well for all of the parties involved. So in that way, I think it's made it an easy choice. In terms of how it fits into our larger sustainability goals, I think think the most significant way is in a special project that we are working on now. We received about an $11 million grant from the state of California Strategic Growth Council for transformative climate communities last year. And that is a specific investment in our most at-risk neighborhoods to help improve the effects of climate change. And a large component of that is a project to install rooftop solar for free on 108 single-family homes, as well as 4 multifamily dwellings. And so we know this influx of applications and projects is going forward with our partners. So to have SolarAPP there in the beginning before we go through that process is really, I think, going to help us, meet our project goals. I'd say another piece of that is that we not only are putting solar on homes there, we also have a workforce development component from people from that area who will be trained as installers. And so having them kind of learn and use SolarAPP kind of from the beginning is going to, I think, just help in that workforce development piece. One of the things we're also trying to do is boost our promotion of just the state and federal incentives that exist out there. We need to do a better job of that here, and that's our goal this year in Stockton. So with that kind of campaign, we do expect to see a higher influx of applications. So again, it helps us in that way. And just in a more broad sense, I think, as Lynn said a moment ago, people who are putting solar on their homes are the same folks that are thinking about how do I get an electric vehicle or a plug-in hybrid. So we have some very ambitious goals for EV charging infrastructure and creating those kinds of opportunities. So downstream, we do expect that it's also going to help us kind of help our residents adopt EV electric vehicle charging. So those are some of the ways that is going to work for us.
Awesome. All right, that was John Alita, who is the Deputy City Manager of Stockton. Thanks so much, John, for that. For folks who are asking questions in the chat, hopefully our DOE team can address as many as we can get to. Really appreciate the engagement here. And let me go to now Mayor Romero. I mentioned that Tucson was able to make incredible progress in reducing wait times for permitting thanks to SolarAPP. And I'm wondering if you can tell us a little bit more about how this tool has improved permitting and inspection in your city. What are the other benefits maybe that it's generated?
Well, thank you for having me, Secretary Granholm. We really appreciate it. Tucson, Arizona has 350 plus days of sun, one of the sunniest cities in America. And we have, the city of Tucson has been taking advantage, right, of the sun that we enjoy to go solar. And so we've installed more than 10.5 megawatts of energy, which basically is like taking 73,000 vehicles off the road. So we have a deep commitment. In September, Mayor and Council passed a climate emergency declaration. And so we now have a really like a roadmap to get to what we need to do in terms of solar and climate resiliency, et cetera. And we also see it with an eye to equity. So what does it mean from going for a permitting process that was taking 4 weeks? Now with SolarAPP, we give a permit the same day. And with that, for the installers and for the companies that are installing solar in the city of Tucson, time is money. And so that helps our companies install much more solar installations in rooftops. We just approved about 450 installations in the last 60 days alone that we have been using SolarAPP in the city of Tucson. And because time is money for the city of Tucson, we can charge less for the permit. So what that means is that it becomes less expensive for the installation, and we make solar much more available to communities, to low-income communities in our cities. So that is something that is unbelievable. We are absolutely enjoying the process, learning from it, and because we are seeing so much development happening in the city of Tucson, we are encouraging the installation of rooftop solar here in Tucson. So it just, in so many different ways, it helps not just the companies install much more, it helps low-income families, but it also helps our climate emergency declaration and our climate goals here in Arizona.
All right. Sounds like it's really been a win-win-win for
Yes.
Tucson, residents, businesses, government alike. That's Mayor Regina Romero. Thank you so much for joining us. And let me jump over to Council Member Will Jawando. Let's hear from you. We talked a little bit about how solar benefits households and what the SolarAPP means for folks interested in going solar. What potential impacts do you see for your local workforce?
Well, thank you. Thank you, Secretary Granholm, for having all of us, and not to be outdone by the mayor with those 350 days of sun. I'm going to have to visit, but we do have a beautiful Chesapeake Bay watershed here that we're trying to preserve for future generations. And, in Montgomery County, we have a goal of an 80% reduction in emissions by 2030, which is in line with some of the great goals of the Biden-Harris administration that you mentioned earlier. And if we're going to get there, we're going to have to change every form of our society, as you know, and how we heat our homes, what our transportation system looks like, and certainly what we do in our buildings, right? And it's going to be critical, and there's no way we get there without greening the grid. Otherwise, we could see an increase in emissions. So for us, solar is a key strategy for everybody. It's a key strategy. We have 1.1 million people. We have 500 square miles. We have an agricultural reserve, rural, urban, suburban, and rooftops to parking lots to some of our less productive and fallow land in our agricultural reserve. We're doing everything we can to incentivize, expand, and enable solar installations. And so we have to do it to save our planet and achieve our climate goals. And so this will not only help keep us all here and my grandkids and their kids for future generations, it's also, as the mayor mentioned, it's an equity issue for communities that have all too often been left behind economically. We know in these multiple pandemics we are going through, with COVID, the economic fallout, the racial and social justice fallout that we've seen. Solar has an answer for that, particularly in this context. It requires a diverse array of tradespeople, whether it's electricians, plumbers, the installers themselves. And we also often remember rooftop solar in particular requires roofs to be in good condition. So roof repairs themselves, there's all these downstream benefits for the economy here in a county like ours and across the country. And while you've heard earlier, they save residents dramatically a large amount of money. This app will make it easier to do that by injecting more money into our local economy. That's gonna help our residents, help us to continue services, and so it's a really virtuous cycle through these lower utility bills and the money that'll come back into the economy. Another thing that doesn't often get talked about, but I like to point out, and we're already seeing this here, if you think about the fossil fuel industry, the solar industry, as opposed to that, is much more reliant on actual workers instead of large machines that are used to extract resources from our earth. The solar industry currently employs over 350,000 people and growing. We heard from the great industry leader here. And this is going to allow, along with many other plans the administration has, allow us to even increase that number even more and creating more jobs in our communities. So we're already starting to see these benefits. We recently passed a zoning text amendment that's going to allow solar in our agricultural reserve and fallow land. We just had an application in last week for our first 2 megawatt, hopefully of hundreds more to be installed there. But rooftops have to be a huge part of the solution, especially in a county and jurisdiction with 1 million people, with many houses and homes. So we're working hard. We're excited that I think hopefully we can come show you the work we're doing here, Secretary. And I think that's an opportunity for that in the future. But I'm really excited to join all my colleagues in really pushing this forward, and would encourage any local official really take advantage of this, because it's good for our environment It's good for our residents and it's good for our workers. And we need it now more than ever. So really appreciate the opportunity to share.
Awesome, awesome. Montgomery County, Maryland is lucky to have you. Council member Will Juwando, thank you so much. And, just to build on that, if there's one thing you should know about me, it's I am totally obsessed with creating good paying jobs that are going to be in demand for years to come, career launching jobs. And so I'm so thrilled to hear that SolarAPP can help play a part in that clean energy job creation. So finally, I want to talk to Mayor Liccardo. San Jose was an early leader in automated solar permitting, and it predated our launch of SolarAPP. And as I understand it, you saw your solar permit applications jump 600%, I think, after you launched your online tool. So we were inspired by your leadership. I'm wondering, what are the lessons that we can draw when it comes to newer technologies like energy storage, for example?
Well, it's an honor to be with you, Madam Secretary, and really great to be here with clean energy champions from around the country. We appreciate the leadership of the Department of Energy on this, and I agree the SolarAPP is a great step. We've seen evidence here in San Jose since we installed our own online permitting system that's really accelerated what we're doing here. We've been able to issue about 22,000 permits for 175 megawatts in that time. And we need to push hard because we're also the largest city in the country to mandate all electric construction of all new buildings. We're gas free going forward, so we're going to need a lot of solar. And we're pushing hard. We're the third highest PV adopter in the country. We're hoping to be number one soon. But battery storage is really critical, as you pointed out. And we know it's critical for resilience, whether we've got wildfires or power safety shutoffs out here in California, or hurricanes in the Southeast or anywhere else. And we're all trying to see how we can flatten the duck curve of demand spikes. What we've learned really through our efforts, we are now going online with permitting for all battery storage systems as well. And we've learned a few things through this process. And first, I would urge everyone to go digital if you can. We certainly did it during the pandemic when it became pretty essential to find ways to accommodate work at home. And that's helped us accelerate quite a bit. We've been able to permit about 800 at-home projects, storage, and a few more on the commercial side. And we're now engaging some virtual inspections, although virtual inspections, I should say, can be challenging because we haven't yet figured out how to save a lot of time. It takes some education, certainly with the contractors as well as with city staff about those inspection needs, but we hope that between virtual inspections and online permitting, we can all get there quickly. The second lesson we've really learned is around trying to treat all these systems as being integrated. We know solar customers are likely to be interested in battery storage. They're also likely to be interested, we hope, in electric vehicle charging. And being able to integrate all that into a single permit is our goal. And we're trying to do that in the next couple months so that folks simply are coming in for a one-stop shop and we can push as much as possible onto the grid and off of fossil fuels as quickly as possible. And we're also trying to work with our inspectors to ensure we can get a combination inspection and make all that happen quickly. And then the last thing I would say is that training is really critical. We've got to invest in our people. That's both for city staff as well as for contractors. The technology advances are happening so fast, and there's a constant introduction of new products and revised products. And we know, particularly with home energy storage, there's a lot of additional engineering involved, a lot of city review and inspection to ensure that we have safety. And so we're going to continue to need a lot of research and a lot of training, and we appreciate partnership with the Department of Energy to help all of us upskill in various ways. And we need a lot of local partnerships with community colleges, with trades and nonprofits to ensure that we expand the pipeline and continue to upskill. So we've got a lot of work to do, and I'm really excited about this great step.
Well, Mayor, thank you so much for your great leadership, your example, and we're just going to continue to follow what you're doing and try to get as many people with battery systems as well as solar systems on their roofs, right? And in their garages, depending on where the storage is. So folks, there you have it. If you really want to share in this summer of solar, saving time for your residents and money for your local government while attracting new businesses, new jobs, new opportunities for your people, y'all need SolarAPP. So I want to thank everybody for joining us this afternoon. And I know that there's been a lot of chat in there, and I'm going to turn it back over to to Becca just in a second, Jones Albertus. But I just do want to say we are really grateful to those who have signed us up since our pilot. And I hope to see dozens and dozens more of the communities represented here today on that list by September 30th. Let's get to 125 communities who've raised their hands. Becca?
Thank you so much, Madam Secretary. Thank you for being with us to officially launch SolarAPP Plus. We're so excited to see how SolarAPP is going to help communities make it faster, easier, and cheaper to install more solar. So for all of you, you can learn more about our SolarAPP Challenge and our Summer of Solar campaign on our press release, which we're going to post in the chat. And now we're going to have the opportunity to hear from some additional local government leaders whose communities have begun engaging in the process of adopting SolarAPP. Just pulling up a video here, should be running in just a moment.
Simplifying and streamlining the solar permitting process is one of the few levers the City of Houston has to help reduce barriers to adoption. Automating plan review.
Sorry about that. A few technical challenges. We'll have it up here in just a minute.
Simplifying and streamlining the solar permitting process is one of the few levers the City of Houston has to help reduce barriers to adoption. Automating plan review, permit approval, and project tracking would also save time and money for both installers and the city. This is why I have asked the Permitting Center to test the SolarAPP software in Houston. I'm Mayor Sylvester Turner of Houston, Texas, chair of Climate Mayors and the Resilient Cities Network, and we are connected with SolarAPP.
Hello, I'm Jesse Edegan, the mayor of the city of Berkeley and president of the Association of Bay Area Governments. And I'm excited to bring SolarAPP Plus to our community as it's a vital tool for us to continue our national climate leadership. It will also cut costs associated with our residents' ability to put solar on their roof. SolarAPP Plus will be a benefit to our entire Bay Area community, and I congratulate all who've made this tool possible on its launch.
Hi everyone, my name is Brian Osorio and I'm the mayor of the city of Delano, California. I'm excited for SolarAPP Plus and its efforts to streamline the permitting process for simpler solar installations. Solar energy is important to achieve our renewable energy goals, but also supports local economic development. It helps combat climate change, and it helps modernize the electric grid.
Hi, my name is Sarah Lamnon. I am a Hayward City Council member and excited to be learning about the SolarAPP. Solar energy is vital to our community, of course, not only for achieving renewable energy goals, but also for supporting local economic development and enabling people to easily and smoothly participate in the process of keeping a clean and sustainable community.
Greetings. I'm Clarence Anthony, the CEO and Executive Director of the National League of Cities. Local leaders can use SolarAPP Plus to ensure a high quality and efficient solar permitting process for buildings in their communities. The seamless solar permitting process by SolarAPP Plus improves the effectiveness of local government staff. But more importantly, this efficiency translates into better services for residents, area businesses, and local industries. NLC encourages local governments to learn how SolarAPP Plus can advance your community's goals.
We are so happy to have these local governments getting connected and seeing the value of SolarAPP, and they're not alone. Support is coming from the solar industry, incredible support from the industry, as well as industries related to solar. One of our supporters is a familiar face to many of you. Those of you who watch HGTV might recognize Jonathan Scott, co-host of the TV show Property Brothers, and he's here to say a few words. Let's take a look.
Everybody agrees the U.S. needs to deploy clean, local, and renewable energy resources at a historic pace in order to tackle the climate crisis. Part of that solution is bringing the cost of technologies like solar way down. That's why I support the National Renewable Energy Laboratory's Solar Automated Permit Processing Tool, otherwise known as SolarAPP Plus. So much time and money is wasted on how long it takes to get a solar system approved and permitted. This system automates and expedites all of that. It's good for cities and it's good for homeowners. So I encourage you to join me, the Department of Energy, and the National Renewable Energy Laboratories by visiting solarapp.nrel.gov and sign up for a pilot today. The system is offered to cities and counties at no cost. It walks solar and storage installers through an automated permit approval process, so checking all your work along the way and making sure that homeowners can get solar safely and quickly. It can be integrated into existing solar application software platforms as well, so the adoption is pretty much turnkey, just like on all my properties.
Hi, I'm Abby Hopper, the President and CEO of SIA. I'm so excited to be here today to help launch the SolarAPP Plus platform and tool. It has been a couple of years in the making. SIA has been intimately involved in this process with a bunch of our partners and other institutions, and it's been a real pleasure to see this come to fruition. I know what a difference this tool will make. I know that it will make residential solar permitting and commercial solar permitting more efficient, more inexpensive, easier for your companies to navigate. And so that will help solve the climate crisis because we need rapid solar deployment in all market segments. I also know that this will be a win-win situation. It will be a win for our installers. It will be a win for jurisdictions. And I'm so pleased that we have this tool that we worked on together.
Thanks so much, Jonathan and Abby. Now I'm pleased to turn things over to Jeff Cook, who's the lead developer for SolarAPP Plus at the National Renewable Energy Laboratory. Thanks so much for joining us today, Jeff.
Thanks, Becca. I'm so excited to be here and talk through the SolarAPP Plus with all the great speakers on the call, and certainly all of the chat and questions that are there. So as Becca mentioned, National Renewable Energy Lab is thrilled to be leading the SolarAPP Plus project, and it's a collaborative effort. We are going to present a bit about the performance of SolarAPP and detailing some of the great feedback we've already heard or discussion we've heard from the Secretary and others. And so we can move to the next slide, and just reminding everyone, as was already said, that the SolarAPP Plus was designed in a collaborative effort with the International Code Council, the National Fire Protection Association, UL, IAEI, code officials, local governments, and contractors. We all came together to develop that win-win solution that the Secretary and, of course, Abby was just speaking about. And so that group of organizations came together to develop SolarAPP Plus, which is, in fact, designed to be, as the Secretary was saying, a one-stop shop to get an instant permit for solar. We've also rebranded as SolarAPP Plus, as the Secretary was referring to, because we are expanding to storage and we're already evaluating storage at this point in time. And oh, by the way, we had one of our partners, Tesla, on the project. Val Anderson over at Tesla actually started to submit a job while the Secretary was speaking, and it took her 10 minutes to get the job done, get an instant permit in Pima County. Of course, they're operating in partnership with Tucson, Arizona. So Val already issued a project in the process of this webinar, which is really exciting. That means that Tesla can move right through their process, avoiding that long delay in permitting times. In addition, I wanted to point out to this group that the long-term future of the SolarAPP Plus is going to be managed by UL as the long-term owner of the product. And then in addition, the SolarAPP Foundation is going to be managing all of the future expansions of the application. So as I mentioned, we are already incorporating storage into the application. And this is residential rooftop PV systems and storage together. And so the SolarAPP is focused on residential rooftop PV. And as I mentioned, the SolarAPP Foundation is going to be the oversight body, which will continue to keep this collaborative development organization together, which would have the code officials, a balanced group of code officials, governments, contractors, and subject matter experts to really continue this discussion and build out the application going forward. And so we can move to the next slide from here. And what I want to let everyone know is the general SolarAPP Plus process. So as I was mentioning, Tesla actually did their project in SolarAPP. They inputted their design. They took the design and submitted in Pima County's permitting system. In the approval document that was produced after we did our code compliance checks in SolarAPP. Then they paid for their permit fee and they got an instant permit in Pima County. And this is generally the process used everywhere, more or less. If we move to the next slide, I want to start giving you a little bit more detail into terms of how SolarAPP Plus is actually performing. Those pilot results the Secretary already teased for us. So let's get into it. We can move to the next slide. We piloted this in our first 3 communities reflected here, Menifee, California being the 4th community, and Stockton, as you heard from earlier on the call, being our 5th community in that second phase of pilots. But as for the first phase of pilots, we included about 150 jobs in that pilot phase. We had a controlled group of jobs, and we had a SolarAPP Plus group of jobs. We tracked both of those to evaluate between the 2 of them. Subsequently, of course, all these communities have gone to launch the application. And exciting note, Menifee, California launched today for all contractors. So that's our 4th community launched today. Of course, we hope Stockton will be the next one to follow thereafter. So subsequently, 620 jobs have already gone through the SolarAPP beyond the piloting phase. And we can move to the next slide to see what happened. So ultimately here you can see between our pilots there in the 2021 phase, between the control group and traditional, you're seeing we saved about 18 days in Tucson, 5 days in Pima County, and about a day in Pleasant Hill based on their varying processes. You can also see that permitting timelines have been increasing, at least in the context of Tucson, and that's in relation to some of the pandemic and really having put a strain on the ability to process permits, in addition to being inundated with permits, as Pima and Tucson were alluding to in the call earlier. And so ultimately really exciting to see SolarAPP is delivering instant permitting for these jurisdictions, which is exactly what we suggested. Now let's move to the next slide, or exactly what we expected to see, of course, given it's an instant platform. And that results in real time savings for the jurisdiction. Across all 3 jurisdictions, SolarAPP can manage both the initial permit review process and revisions that might be resulting from design changes. So only focused on the pilot part of it, we saved over 185 hours of time, staff time, in reviewing those permits. Subsequently, we've already saved 420 hours of time in relation to these projects in these communities. And that exceeds the time it took to set up the pilots and to participate in those pilot programs for the communities, which across all 3 and cumulative total for all 3 jurisdictions was about 235-ish hours. And so we've returned our investment already to them in terms of time savings, in fact, doubling up that. So they're getting real time savings, as I mentioned before, to ensure they can focus on those complex projects that they're getting. And so if we move to the next slide, we are clearly saving time at the permitting phase. Importantly, we are not increasing time at inspection. So we're not moving that time to later in the process. And rather, we're showing here that the inspection durations, the time it takes an inspector to complete their inspection, is basically the same time. In one community, Pima, it looks a little bit, a few minutes shorter in the context of SolarAPP. And then in Tucson, it might be a minute or so more. In short, they're basically the same. And in fact, the inspectors in those communities have already mentioned to us that they expect in the future that having one standardized inspection checklist that the SolarAPP developed is going to be making their inspections a lot easier to do, as opposed to looking at 1,001 different single line or 3-line diagrams they get today. So that's exciting. Moving to the next slide, you can see that we have increased or haven't impacted inspections, and we haven't resulted in a significant uptick in failure of inspections as a result from using the application. So overall, there were about 5% of our jobs that have so far made it through inspection that failed their inspection. And that's 6 of the 123 jobs in total. So overall, solar jobs rarely fail inspections at all in either the traditional or the SolarAPP sense. Of those 6 jobs that failed, we'd rather have a 0 there, of course. 5 of the 6 of those occurred before, in May. and have subsequently, we've only had one failure since then. And most of those failures were actually related to miscommunications in terms of the process. This was a totally new process. There was confusion about what documents needed to be on site for the inspection and which didn't. And we've developed an inspection training in particular to help folks to be able to understand what's happening. So we're really excited about this, and especially that the inspection failure rate is very low and it's going down, hopefully to zero, which will be our goal. Moving on to the next slide. Importantly, we're not adding more time to inspection. We're also reducing the time it takes to get an installation, which, all else being equal, ensures that these projects are installed faster and they provide more economic benefit to consumers and the grid faster as well. So as mentioned earlier in the call, we're losing millions of dollars by delays, and we're seeing in these communities we are speeding up the timeline to install, which is resulting in benefits to the consumer, it's resulting in benefits to the jurisdiction, and it's resulting in benefits to the contractor. So again, a win-win-win, which is exciting to see. Moving to the next slide. Again, so how can you participate in the program? We can jump right to the next one. If you are a local government, we are so excited that you're joining us today, and we want to work with you. I heard a couple of folks already registered via the chat, which is exciting. That is the best way to do it. And so I think Susanna, if she hasn't already, she's going to throw a link into the chat about how to register if you haven't seen that already. In addition, ultimately, there are 3 basic steps. Get to the website, register, then answer a couple of questions for us and click Launch Pilot. And then we will work with you on how to start that. It's a 10 to 15-minute process to do this. And it's critical. It's a critical first step for you to get involved with SolarAPP. So I encourage you to do that. If you are a contractor on this call, you can also register at that same link. Register there. Let us know what communities you're operating in today, and we can get you set up to push permits today in Pima County, Tucson, Menifee, California, Pleasant Hill, our pilot communities as well, and then keep you informed of when other communities adopt. Moving to the next slide. There's a couple of key next steps I wanted to include here, which is, again, those links, as you can see there, to the upcoming webinar from the National League of Cities. Excited to work with them, registering. And once you do register as a jurisdiction, for example, you'll get this form here, which will walk you through all the stuff that you need to do, again, in about 10-ish or so minutes. And then finally, as I mentioned, if you are an inspector or a local government and you have questions about how SolarAPP works, how would you inspect that system? We encourage you to go to the International Renewable Energy Council, IREX, SolarAPP Plus inspection training. It's free and online for everybody to use today, and we're looking forward to working with you all going forward. So with that, a whirlwind webinar, I think we do have a few minutes left for questions. And so I've looked through or been following the chat of those questions, and I think there's a fair amount of them we can get to today before we have to wrap up here at the turn of the hour. For those questions, keep putting them in the chat. We will be sure to respond to as many of them as we can today, and then we will also make sure to respond to those that we can after the fact as well. So there was a couple of questions in here. The first that I want to cover is how does it actually work with a software system that a jurisdiction is using? And I'm excited to say that we've actually announced a partnership with Acela, one of the leading government software vendors. In addition, there's going to be an announcement tomorrow with EnerGov and the Tyler Technologies suite of products. So with Tyler Technology, there'll be an announcement tomorrow we're very excited about relating to how you can use any Tyler software user today will be able to turn SolarAPP on in their existing processes very quickly. And of course, Stockton was on the call and they're using a Acela system, and they've already configured Acela to be able to work with SolarAPP. And so if you are a jurisdiction, you have your own software product where you issue permits, that's great. Let us know in the registration process. We'll work with your system. If it's EnerGov, if it's Acela, if it's somebody else, we can work with them, including Central Square, which we're excited about their involvement as well. So ultimately, that one I wanted to cover right off the bat. The other one I wanted to get to is the cost of SolarAPP Plus. It's free to jurisdictions. If you're a jurisdiction, you want to adopt SolarAPP, register, let us know. We'll work with you to get it set up. If you're a contractor, there is a cost on a per permitted system. So there's a $25 cost for each system that you run through the application and submit for a permit. Of course, if you're just testing and looking in the system, you don't have to pay for that. If you are, I saw there was a couple of questions, how do I learn how to use the application? So I threw into the chat a link to our knowledge base where all of the information about SolarAPP, how to use it, how to run a job, how to register, all that stuff is on our knowledge base. And of course, if you register, we can help you navigate through it. And so there is an opportunity there. And then there was another question, how do we get this to every jurisdiction across the country? And for that, I'm looking to everyone on this call. So we are engaging with every community that needs us, which is a lot of communities across the country. And we're working in 6 states already. And we're working to expand nationwide. So the application is currently based on the 2017 National Electrical Code and the 2018 International Building Code and International Residential Code. We are working to expand to the 2020 and 2021 code cycle. So if there is communities for which you are operating in, or if you are one of those communities using one of those codes or set of codes, we are already ready to work with you. For those of you that want to help us spread the message about SolarAPP, there's a ton of ways to do that. We encourage you all to register and follow us online to get to that. You can also email us via our knowledge base website, which I threw in the chat as well, so you can get involved. Every organization on here, if they talked with 5 jurisdictions that you're aware of, we could get to the 20,000 jurisdictions and well blow past the Secretary's commitment for 125 communities engaged by September 30th. And so again, to get involved, please do reach out to us via the SolarAPP website to be able to learn how to get involved. We will take support from all of you to distribute all of the great information about SolarAPP, including this webinar, to everyone you work with. So I wanted to make sure I covered that one as well. I wanted to cover scope expansions too. I saw there was a bunch of questions and we've already alluded to, so we've rebranded from SolarAPP to SolarAPP Plus. And that's because we're incorporating battery storage. And so we are already piloting battery storage in Pima County, Tucson, Arizona, Pleasant Hill, California. We're working to do it in Menifee, California, and our other piloting communities thereafter, in addition to expanding the application going forward. So we're still in the piloting phase of that. And it's not publicly available yet, but we're working to do that. There were questions about expanding to commercial and industrial applications. That is on our roadmap, and we encourage folks in that space to reach out to us and engage with us, because it is not a small task, as you might imagine, to get from thoughts on paper of instant permitting for these projects and getting that to fruition. And so we encourage you all to engage with us on that topic. In addition to building integrated roofing, our PV products, so the solar roof that you've heard a lot about, we're working to include those ground-mounted systems as well. And none of that, just to clarify, right now SolarAPP Plus is only processing residential rooftop permits, and it's only processing those for licensed contractors. So we aren't doing homeowner-driven projects, which I saw also was a question in the chat as well. And so I think I'm really running through these. I got a couple more I think I can do here. And there's one I saw, or a bunch I saw around the structural requirements within the SolarAPP. What is SolarAPP doing to evaluate the structural integrity of the home? And that is a critical piece of the SolarAPP, and we have compliance-related requirements for it. We're also evaluating the wind and snow load requirements of the community, as well as the temperatures, all in the process of approving the project. And making sure they have the proper listings, et cetera. And so on the structural side, for those of you with questions, we're happy to walk you through all of that. There's an example approval document on our website where we articulate the structural requirements that are happening. And just to be clear, we are always verifying this at the time of inspection. And so that goes for structural, it goes for fire setbacks, and it goes for the electrical. The SolarAPP does not result in no inspection at all. Those inspections still need to be done, but the important thing is we're verifying workmanship out in the field. So if the inspector sees something that the contractor tried to sneak by them out in the field, they would be able to still flag and fail that as they do today, which is an important check, again, to ensure that we're still installing things safely. Because as you know, the plan can be perfect, but it does depend on how you install it out in the field. And so that's still a critical piece of the system. And as I mentioned before, there's that inspector training to help clarify how we do that for every part of the process. So that's just focused on the structural side. There's plenty of other compliance checks we're doing on electrical and fire, and we're happy to talk through all of those as well. The last thing I want to get to today is, and I'm sorry we're running out of time, but it's on interconnection. And so there were a bunch of questions in there. How does SolarAPP, can we equate everything from SolarAPP into the interconnection processes as well? How do we get the savings there and get them into the rest of the process? And so we're excited to say Tucson Electric Power worked with us, and Pima County, Tucson, can't say enough about Carla Blackwell over there and Lynn Birkenbein as well, and the whole team over there for helping us work with Tucson Electric Power to streamline their processes, to improve them. And so we are already seeing savings with Tucson Electric Power as one example. We're going to be working with utilities to continue to make it more seamless so that in the future, a human doesn't have to review the permitting process. They may not even have to be out on site, certainly for inspections, and then they can have everything automated into the interconnection portal as well, so that there's no human touch in there, but we confirm the design is co-compliant. And so thanks so much. I'll turn it back to Becca, and we'll get to as many other questions in follow-ups after.
Thank you so much, Jeff. That was really informative. And I hope all of you can tune in for the National League of Cities webinar in a couple of weeks to continue to learn more. So to close out, I want to thank all of you for joining us today. I want to remind you to sign up for the Summer of Solar campaign and our Solar Office newsletters so you can stay on top of upcoming events like this one and more. You see the link on your screen in front of you, and we'll put the link also in the chat. But have a great day, everyone, and thank you again for being with us.